Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Bibb County Commission regular committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, January 26th, and the time is now 9 o'clock. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. We have 36 items on the agenda today, so we will proceed accordingly. At this time, I have a couple of household matters to take care of. Number one, I have two sections that we need to add items. So I'm going to ask for a motion at the appropriate time for the following. Section 2, items J, K, and L. All three of those are appointments to the Rosa Parks Square Board. I'm going to ask for a motion to add those to the agenda shortly. And then item 6E is a GDOT grant, which $400,000 of that is coming from the GDOT with a $100,000 match for 2022 budget. And that's part of a $1.8 million grant for the trail. And I'll be asking for a motion for both of those to be added to the agenda today. So this time I'd like to entertain a motion to add those items to the agenda. Got a motion by Commissioner Wynn, second by Commissioner Howell. Any discussion on those matters? All those in favor of the motion? Excuse me. Yes, ma'am. Should be already there.
I think they're in the
Right, they're in your packet. We added them last night. Oh, are you? Okay.
Okay. We'll get you a copy of those. Thank you.
Right.
Something new? Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and it'll be added to the agenda. At this time, we need a motion to approve of the minutes for the committee meeting on January the 12th, 2021. I get a motion? Motion by Pro Tem Clark. I get a second? Second by Commissioner Lucas. Any discussion on those? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. This time we'll move on to appointments to authorities, boards, and commissioners. You should have already received that information previously. Not a whole lot of discussion on this. We'll move through that. I would ask that if we have a motion that's sponsored by a commissioner, I'll ask you first for a motion if that's okay, and we'll proceed in that manner. So this time the first appointment we have is a resolution of reappointing Reverend Evan Browns to serve on Dartmouth Martin Luther King Board, Junior Board. Can I get a motion on that, Commissioner Lucas?
Yes.
Got a motion by Commissioner Lucas. Can I get a second? Second by Pro Tem Clark. Any discussion on that matter? Yes, ma'am.
Is a board that's been in operation since the early 2000s. It's a part of our charter. The main purpose of the Martin Luther King Commission is to make sure that Dr. King doesn't fade away, that his memory, that the ideals of nonviolence stay with us forever and ever. And so what we do is we gather information from organizations around the community that are sponsoring events. We don't put on a lot of events ourselves, but we do support, we attend, we help with publicity on events that we feel are in keeping with the life and times and ideals of Dr. King. For instance, Macon Parks and Rec sponsors an oratorical contest for youth. They've had to kind of postpone it for this year because of COVID, but it is a wonderful experience for youth, and they have come, the winners have come and presented their speeches to past commission meetings. So those are the kinds of things that we support: the breakfast, the march, all of those things. And so Reverend Evans Brown has been a member since the beginning. He is very faithful, attends all meetings, and is very, very much involved in the community. So I encourage everyone to support him for reappointment.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Be sent to the consent agenda. Resolution B is a resolution appointing Reverend Henry Ficklin to serve on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Board. That also is sponsored by Commissioner Lucas. Can I get a motion, Commissioner Lucas? Yes. Second? Second, Commissioner Wilder. Any discussion on that matter? Commissioner Watkins?
Is it possible that we could vote on all of these in one motion? Or do we
I don't
wanna
have a
talk about
problem
each one of these
myself.
individually?
Okay.
Okay, are you?
Okay.
Especially for the new members, that these folks aren't just going on there to sit, that they've actually done stuff in the past, and that you can be assured that they will continue to work on our behalf, because this is a Macon-Bibb Martin Luther King Commission.
Yes, ma'am.
Board, excuse me.
Now, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Lucas, you have some remarks to make on this?
Yes,
particular?
Dr. Ficklin has been a member of the Martin Luther King Commission from its inception. He has been one of the faithful faith leaders as a part of that board. He attends the meetings. He participates in the events that are held all over the community. So I ask my fellow commissioners to support his renomination.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Be sent to the consent agenda. This third one here may be kind of suspect. Resolution appointing Elaine Lucas to serve on the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Board. I'll make that motion. Can I get a second? Second, Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Any discussion on that? Commissioner Lucas, you want me to tell you how great she is?
I don't know her. What does she do? I'd like to make that motion, yes.
Sure, we've got a motion and second. Any discussion on the matter? Having no discussion, all those in favor of the matter, please say aye. Opposed, nay.
Yeah, we're kind of slow on that. Voted kind of slow.
Gotta wake up this morning. All right, we got Resolution D is a reappointment to Reverend Dominique Johnson to serve on the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Board. Can I get a motion, Commissioner Lucas?
Yes, so moved.
Can I get a second? Second, Commissioner Wilder. Any discussion on that, Ms. Lucas?
Yes, Reverend Dominique Johnson was appointed, I believe, 4 or 5 years ago, and he has attended the meetings. He's been very, very active in the community. He shows up to the events that other organizations are sponsoring, and he's a very, very strong voice and an advocate for Dr. King and his ideals in the community. So I ask for his reappointment.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. We had a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion also carries unanimously. We'll go to item E, a resolution appointing Reverend Dominique Nichols to serve on the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Board. I got a motion, Commissioner Lucas.
So moved.
And a second? Second by Pro Tem Clark. Any discussion on that matter, Commissioner Lucas?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Reverend Dominic Nichols is a former Teacher of the Year, the Bibb County School System. He has been in charge, I believe, of the ninth grade academy at West Side. He worked just recently helping to sponsor young people to the polls to vote, especially those voting the first time, and inclusion of a lot of our high school students in civic events. And he expressed an interest. He is a new appointment of yours, and thank you so much for considering him. He will be representing the school system on the Martin Luther King board.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. As you know, that we have at least one representative from the school system on there, and Dominique Nichols will be that representative. I can attest that he's a fine young gentleman. He represented us well as Teacher of the Year, and he served at one of my districts at West Side, so I certainly believe that's a good choice. And we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries. Item F is a resolution appointing Harold Young to serve on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Board. That motion is sponsored by myself as well as Commissioner Lucas. Can I get a motion?
Yes, sir. So moved.
Get a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion on that matter, Commissioner Lucas?
Yes, sir. Harold Young is now serving as the interim director of the Tubman Museum. At the inception of the Martin Luther King Board, we did have Mr. Andy Ambrose and so what we've said is whoever serves as the director there would be the person working on events for the Martin Luther King Board. And so Harold Young is in that position now and is very, very active in the community and has supported many of the events. And so I would strongly recommend him to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Likewise, that motion carries. We'll move on to item H, which is a resolution G, a resolution appointing C. Warren Selby Jr. to post one of the Construction Board of Appeals. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion in that matter?
I really do think, since we might fast track this later on, that we might need to just have a couple of sentences about what this construction board does and how it fits into government. That's just the teacher in me. I'm sorry
No
if
problem.
I hold y'all up, but just
You know,
bear
the
with
student
me.
and me got in trouble a lot, so we can't play this teacher-student thing here. But I appreciate that, Commissioner Lucas. Some of the new commissioners may not realize that position. I will say that Warren Selby was elected as chair of that board on yesterday. That is an open meeting that everyone is invited to attend. It's an appeal meeting that will probably meet more on a quarterly basis, but they are set up to meet monthly. So we do have a motion and a second. No further discussion on that matter. Can we take a vote? Can all those in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Item H is a resolution appointing Kelsey Holland to the Keep Making Beautiful Board. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion on that matter?
Yeah, I just wanted to say with Keep Making Beautiful being sort of EKG back into all they're doing with the community cleanups and everything. I did leadership making with Kelsey, and I know her work ethic, and I think it's a great addition.
I appreciate that. I think she's also the request for the Georgia Power appointment to that board, and they contribute well to our organization. So we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Item I is a resolution appointing Erin Patrice Keller to the Board of Directors to the River Edge Behavioral Health Community Service Board. That is my motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Lucas. Any discussion in that matter? Okay. Got a motion second, no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Item J is a resolution to appoint Susanna Cox Maddox to serve on the Friends of Rosa Parks Square Board. That is sponsored by Mayor Pro Tem Clark and Commissioner Al Tillman. Pro Tem Clark, can I get your motion?
So moved.
And a second? Second, Commissioner Wilder. Any discussion on that matter?
I'll just speak real quick on all three of them. I think we're all familiar with their work in the community, and it's work that we can all be proud of. These are recommendations that the board chair of the Friends of Rosa Parks Square Board brought to Commissioner Tillman and me. We both thought they were a great idea. I'm open to moving these to the bottom of the agenda to wait for Mr. Tillman if we need to, but he's signed off on it. But I just wanted to speak to that.
Thank you, Pro Tem Clark. We got a motion and a second, no further discussion. All those in favor of this motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. We'll move on to item K, a resolution appointing Lenita Pless King to serve on the Friends of Rosa Parks Square Board. That's also sponsored by Commissioner Tillman and Pro Tem Clark. Can I get your motion, Clark?
So moved.
Got a motion by Clark. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Howell. Any discussion on that matter? Having no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to item L, resolution appointing Andrea Cook to serve on the Friends of Rosa Parks Square Board. Same motion by Commissioner Al Tillman and Pro Tem Clark. Pro Tem Clark, can I get your motion?
So moved.
Got a motion by Pro Tem Clark. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Howell. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Item M is the resolution of Macon-Bibb County Commission reappointing Robert W. Brown to alternate post 1 of the Construction Board of Appeals. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion on that matter?
Tell us something about Mr. Brown. Just So we know something?
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Brown is a architect here in the community. He's already served at the inception of this board. He's been a valued member in working with Safe Built and going over the policies and procedures.
Is that Bob Brown, the one I know?
Yes, Bob
Yes.
Brown.
Okay,
About-
that's what threw me, okay.
Yeah, it's Bob Brown. He's already serving. Commissioner Wayne, did you have a question? Okay,
You
thank
just didn't turn off my light.
I'm
on the
sorry.
first-
I didn't know your light was on. All right, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor of Bob Brown, please say aye. Opposed, nay. We'll send that to consent agenda. Resolution number N is letter N. Resolution of the Macon-Bibb Commission submitting Ron Shipman, Steve Kruger, and Eric Manson as a slate of nominees to succeed Ray Pippin on the Macon-Bibb County Hospital Authority Board. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion on that motion?
Speak briefly to how they do that
Sure.
for the record.
Sure. Actually, I'll let Attorney Groover do that since we've had some legal discussion in that regard.
Excuse me. So the the Hospital Authority Act is set up so that the members of the hospital authority are recommended by the governing authority of Bibb County in slates of 3. And the rule and the procedure is we send them, if you approve these 3 for a particular seat, 3 names, and they can pick one of the 3 names, or they can reject them all. If they reject them all, we send them another 3, and they got to pick one of them. So this is and I anticipate they'll pick one of these 3. But we send them 3, they pick one.
Thank you, Attorney Groover. And these will be recommendations by the mayor on each of these appointments. We're not bound by any 3 that they may suggest to us, and it's not their job to select their own board members, but make recommendations. So we will be making sure that board members are adequately represented on that come from the mayor's office. We have at least 2 more that will be coming down the pike in the next couple of meetings, but we haven't got to a point to appoint those yet. But thank you for that, Commissioner Lucas. We have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Item O is a resolution reappointing June Jordan O'Neill to serve on the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Board, sponsored by myself and Commissioner Lucas. Can I get your motion, Commissioner Lucas? Got a motion by Commissioner Lucas. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion on that, Commissioner Lucas?
Doesn't know, June O'Neill, walking around in her heels and jewelry in every part of the city, helping our young people. I don't know where you've been. But June has been a part of the Martin Luther King Board from its inception. We have many, many projects included in the Martin Luther King calendar of events monthly that are sponsored by the Mentors Project. June has attended meetings regularly and recently supported the wreath laying activity in Rosa Parks Square. So I highly recommend June Jordan O'Neill for reappointment.
Thank you from Commissioner Lucas for those comments. We all know June O'Neill does a wonderful job with our Mentors Project and everything else she's doing at the Warming Center. I got a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously to be sent to the consent agenda. Yes, ma'am.
Ask a point of information from me, and I should have looked at this. We appointed a lot of people for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Board this morning. Were we replacing some people, or how many people are on the board?
There's 11 people by our ordinance on that board, of which several of those are specified. Like one of the commissioner members, Lane Lucas, will be on there. One of the mayor's office, which is Henry Ficklin, will be on there. One of the school board members, school associated with Dominique Nichols, and the other 8 are appointed. Some of those have rolled off for their time have expired. A couple have deceased. So we're reappointing some of those that were already on there, and then we're actually appointing new people to replace those that have expired.
Well, thank you, because you also helped me with understanding of who's the makeup of the board, who's on there. I noticed Commissioner Lucas and June O'Neill are the 2 females, but we need to have diversity on there.
Well, we have several others on there. I think we have a couple more coming up. Thank you. We have motion and second. We've already covered that. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Okay. Opposed, nay. Thank you. Move on to item P, resolution of the Macon-Bibb County Commission reappointing Charles Jones to the Board of Directors of River Edge Behavioral Care Health. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by, who was that, Commissioner Lucas? Yes. Okay. Motion second. This is a request for the River Edge. They've asked to reappoint Charles Jones to that, and I've made that recommendation. Any discussion on that matter? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. We'll also send that to consent agenda. This time we'll move on to section 3, which is Macon-Bibb County new alcohol beverage license. I believe we have one item on that agenda, and it is item A, new license for Rodeo Bar and Grill at 4053 Pinehorn Avenue, Macon, Georgia 31206. This was tabled at December 15th, 2020 meeting. Do we have to get a motion to come up here?
You do not, it's a new commission.
That's what I was thinking. That question was asked to me yesterday, and Mr. Gruber informs me because it's a new commission, there's no need to do any untable on that, so it's automatically on the agenda. Can we get a motion on that? Anybody want to make a motion? Motion by Jones, second by anyone? Second by Commissioner Lucas. Sure. Okay, got a motion by Jones, a second by Lucas. This time we open the floor up for any questions.
Can you update us on, because there's a dispute on this?
I'll make a couple of comments and we'll ask Attorney McNeil to come up to the podium. As you recall, this is a legal dispute between two owners. The owners are filed some legal action that's presently handled by Superior Court in Bibb County. We received some information from the Bibb County Superior Court that we're to deal with one of the parties listed here in regards to that alcohol license, at least on a temporary basis. We requested information from them, and they indicated that we need to deal with Ms. Hunt. She has applied for an alcohol license for that location. The sheriff has approved that license, and this time it's come up before our regular vote. And I will caution members to be careful of any comments that you may make for or against this. This is in litigation now, and it's always the possibility of litigation, so make sure that your responses are such that meet the legal standard and not personal feelings. But this time I asked Attorney McNeil to give any other information that may be needed.
That's correct, Mayor. The Superior Court has said that Ms. Hunt, who's the applicant on this license, is the proper party for the county to issue a license to the extent that she qualifies. She's completed the application process, met all of the requirements. There was nothing in the application to indicate that she did not qualify for this license. There is an appeal pending relating to the judge's order directing us to deal with Ms. Hunt. But while the appeal is pending, the order directing us to deal with Ms. Hunt is still in effect. And so if there's a later court decision that changes that, then that would effectively be another change of ownership, and we would process that at that time. But for right now, she meets all of the qualifications, and we're under court instructions to deal with her.
Thank you, Attorney McNeil. Any questions further? Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir. So they've met all the legal requirements, passed all the requirements per the sheriff, et cetera. So I don't know, I mean, legally, in my mind, we vote to approve because she's met all the requirements.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Any other questions from any other commissioners?
Where is this location? I know it's Pinona, but we're on Pinona.
All I know is Pinona. I don't know where it is.
Chris, you able to pull up anything on there? Okay.
It's down near Houston Avenue.
Down near Rock.
There's a Carnival Mexican grocery store kind of in the same little strip mall with it. I don't know much else about the area.
Rocky Creek area.
It's a Rocky Creek. It's a Rocky Creek area.
It's a new bar, right?
Not
They've-
really.
No, they've been there a few years.
They have
It's a new license
new
application.
license, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, that's
right.
why I picked up on that.
Any other questions, Commissioner Wynn?
No, sir, thank
Okay.
you.
Any further questions from any other commissioners? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay?
No.
Okay, got one nay that I heard. Anyone else? Okay, that motion carries with one consent. We'll move on to items 4, items for financial consideration. The First item is an ordinance to authorize a supplemental budget appropriation for fund balance to tax commissioner budget. That's for computer software line item in the amount of $10,000 to provide funding for software expenses related to the assumption of business license duties. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Wilder. Any further discussion on that matter? No discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Be sent to consent agenda. Move on to item B, a resolution requests legislative or amended action relating to the capture of insurance proceeds order to prevent the abandonment of blighted or destroyed structures. Commissioner Tillman, that is your co-sponsor on that. Can I get your motion? Okay. Got a motion motion on behalf of Commissioner Tillman. Can I get a second? Second on Pro Tem Clark. Any discussion on that matter or comments? Commissioner Tillman?
First of all, just get the attorney to explain the motion, and then I'll come back with some further comments so the public can understand what's happening here.
Thank you, Mr. Tillman.
Sure. So this is a request by this governing authority, if it passes, to the local legislative delegation to introduce legislation at the Capitol this session to provide, in conjunction with the Office of Fire Insurance Commissioner, some kind of legislation that would allow in the event that a structure in town burns down, and we're having obviously issues that contribute to blight based upon partially burned and totally burned structures, that if it burns down, that if there are any insurance proceeds that are collected, that the legislation and the recommendation of the legislature would be that the first money that is collected, or there be a procedure by which the money collected from insurance would first be used to remediate the cost of the tear down and getting rid of the blighted structure itself. And it would provide, the recommendation is up to the legislature to work out the details. It would provide for liens and things like that if they pass it. That's the recommendation we're making generally. The specifics we can't control, but generally the idea is if you've got a partially burned structure, it's a blight on our community. If they get into, the owner gets insurance proceeds, that those proceeds have to be used to tear it down first. And then if we have to do it or some other private party has to do it, there's a lien on the structure. Now, the details, that's as far as this request goes. So the details will be worked out by the legislature if they pass it.
Thank you, Attorney Gruber.
Sure.
Commissioner Tillman, you want to follow up?
Yes, sir. I think, first of all, what we want to make sure and be clear of is that this is not to say or for folks to automatically think or assume that there are some bad folks out there. That's not what we're saying when we bring forth this resolution. There are just some folks out there that some folks just can't afford insurance because they have more than one property, or they just have inherited a property. There are some good people out there that's just trying to do right, but they can't always do right. But if they get insurance and they have insurance, and in talking to the mayor, we've got some in-house departments such as Public Works that I'm learning that can tear down a structure for much less than I originally even thought, according to the mayor. And he may want to share some of those, because I think people need to hear it, because we've heard this $12,000 to $15,000 number. And so a lot of folks are walking away from these properties because they think they're going to be so expensive to tear down. And I would even think that a structure that's been burned would be even much less cost efficient to tear down. And so this is just to be in line with the state and to have everybody on board and understand a way to help eradicate blight. No one wants to live next to a blighted structure. And then those folks that call us and say, we need your help, then if these people did not have insurance, then we can go in and assume the property through our land bank authority and condemnation and help tear it down. So just want to make sure that folks understand this is not to say that we've got to correct folks that's just doing wrong and not doing right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman. Thank you for that sponsor. Commissioner Brunson, had you asked to sponsor that as well? Okay, we'll make sure you get added to that. Commissioner Wynn, I'm with you.
Yeah, yes, sir. I like the idea of what we're trying to do here to get some of our money back for the expenses that go along with removing blighted properties, which we need to do a lot of. I just wonder, I know our attorney said that some of the details would need to be worked out. So we would have, as I understand it, a lien put on these properties, either blighted or damaged by fire or totally destroyed by fire. And that, just like in any insurance proceed, they have, when they're gonna pay off the amount of insurance on that particular property, they have to do a record search, like for a mortgage company or any other lien. So that would be part of what they'd have to do, is check for liens. So we would have a lien filed somewhere for any monies we expended, right? And so the blighted properties, if we go into the blighted properties that aren't destroyed by fire, they're just sitting there empty and deteriorating, would we still and we want to tear those down, we've gone through all the legal process and we want to tear those down, will we still put that lien on the property, just like we?
Commissioner Wynn, this resolution here is just asking the local delegation to look at legislation to help us out on this issue. We want to bring it to their attention. In regards to your question, yes, we will be putting similar on blighted structures, and we'll be making a presentation to the commission at the further meeting on that.
So this is just a recommendation?
That's correct.
That details have not been worked out on?
Yeah, we realize we're in a transition period from the previous administration to this administration, and the local delegation met with no one from Bibb County. And so we didn't have an opportunity to present anything. Of course, I wasn't sworn in at the time, did not get an invite officially, and no one showed up on behalf of this administration. So we didn't have an opportunity to actually meet with them to give them some of the ideas that we wanted to push forward to the next legislation. I will tell you some pretty in-depth information, not to get too deep on this, is we have 849. Originally, 200 was the worst, the most severe, but since 2016 through 2020, 849 structures in Macon-Bibb County, which is about 25 to 30% of our whole entire blighted structure situation have had fires. I was shocked by the number. I asked Interim Chief Edwards to submit that information to code enforcement. We've also sent that. And I went through several of those one by one with Tax Commissioner Wade McCord. And as we approach each residence, I would give him the address and I would ask him when they quit paying taxes, and it would equal when the fire happened. So some of those owners collected the money, and some of those are out-of-state owners that are landlords that had a tenant there. They collected the money and left us with the abandoned structure. And we can't continue to pay $5,000 to $15,000 to remove these houses out of our community that pose a danger and a threat to our health and well-being.
Just one more comment to follow up on Commissioner Tillman. He's right. They don't all cost $15,000 to remove. That's the ones with asbestos and things like that. It's the ones that don't have that are probably already burned most of the way down that would cost $2,000 or $3,000 to get rid of. So we've got a lot of structures that probably could be taken down for a lot less than that large number. Well,
I look forward. We met with a large group of people that I convened on yesterday, approximately 20 of our stakeholder involvement, and we'll be putting forth a proposal next week. I don't want to get in too much in that yet because it is a lot of information, and a lot of that's going to deal with code enforcement. We have identified those structures. We have a very good mapping program now, so we can look at the heat map, and I can tell you exactly which areas get hit the hardest and have the largest economic impact. And it's usually our parts of our communities that are already economic depressed. So we're going to bring something back to you on that, and there's also it's a way that we can get rid of some of the blight that we have that are unsafe for our residents.
I agree that an empty lot is probably better than a blighted structure that people would maybe even go live in for a while, as bad as they can be. We need to think about what we're going to do with those properties once we have them, too.
We have a plan. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Wilder.
Since I've recently retired from the insurance industry, I'm pretty familiar with what works when it comes to debris removal. Most policies carry a percentage of the stated value of the house for debris removal on the side. And the company I work for did require a paid invoice at the end before they would pay it. Gives you a little history on how that works.
Thank you for that information. It's very helpful. Commissioner Jones, you had a question?
Yes, sir. Maybe directed to Attorney Groover. and I know you don't have the specific, but are you thinking you're gonna go in the first lien holder position? Is that what your goal is? And if so, is that legal?
Well, the legislature has to work through those details, and I can't predict what that will look like. We're just asking them for, now, remember, we have our own procedures to Commissioner Wynn's point, that we can go in, if we go through the court procedure and declare the structures to be a nuisance, including burned out structures, and tear them down and clean them up and put a lien on, but there's usually no pot of money at the end of the rainbow, because these are private people who are out of state or whatever. This is having to do with going ahead, if there's an insurance policy, requesting the legislatures give us some kind of lien priority or give us some kind of remedy if we're having to deal with these locally. To your point, that would be the wish, which is we would come first in any kind of other lien in terms of mortgages or whatever, but that's up to them.
So either first or in line somewhere where,
Right.
before it was actually paid off.
That's
so,
right.
so that we would get money
That would be the hope.
reimbursed. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Bronson, you had a question?
Just more so, in the discussion, I'm kind of echoing what the other commissioners have already stated. Just ensuring that we have a plan of action put in place, how we're going to go about implementing it, what is the role for the courts, then ensuring that we also staff our code enforcement team well properly for this. So I think we need to do our part to ensure that when it comes down from up top, then we'll be ready to make the move on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Bronson. Those are very good points, and that's something we're definitely going to address. Commissioner Tillman, you had a final question?
Yeah, just a quick follow. And I think one of the parts of it, Mr. Mayor, you responded to that, your administration now is bringing more attention to blight and these blighted structures. So for those that have not been paying as much attention from a commission and even the administrative side, please start paying attention, because we're going to learn some stuff. The number one thing is, the mayor stated it, is once these structures are burned down, people stop paying on them. It's just like going to planning and zoning. You have to have a plan. They ask you, what's your site plan, or give me a general plan. So if a structure burns down before the insurance pays off, and that's what hopefully our state commissioner, insurance commissioner, and local delegation members can work out, is what is the plan that you have? Not just if we give you this insurance money, which you're entitled to because you paid the note, but what is your plan to remove the structure? And I think what the attorney is saying is we get involved if they don't do what they're supposed to do, because we don't have anything in place that I'm aware of, and maybe there is something across the state. And so I'm just not aware of it. And so liens first have to be acquired by us after people complain for years, after you go through the court system, and we take over the property after they only stop paying taxes. So we acquire property from, or we put liens on properties for people stop paying taxes, not because the structure's burned down, not because the house is old and vacant. We are simply collecting the property taxes that they just stopped paying on. I think this takes it a step further to say we're now paying attention to burned down structures, that we don't want burned down structures. It's great to put a lien on the property, but if it sits there burned down, we can never collect because nobody's doing anything. Nobody's going to want to buy it, acquire it, or put anything on it. So Macon-Bibb has a lien on a property that they can essentially do nothing with. And then everybody's calling all the commissioners, get this out my neighborhood. Oh, it's y'all fault. Look what the commission is doing. And I think we have to have a remedy to that and stop taking the blame game for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman. Final question, Commissioner Howell.
Thank you. Like Commissioner Tillman has said, there's a lot of folks that's just not doing the right thing when it comes to houses burning. I think this is a great step in the right direction. I know that there's some legal things that'll have to be worked out, but I feel like this is just another tool in the toolbox for our code enforcement, and I would, saying that, like to be added as a co-sponsor, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell. We've got a motion and a second. No further discussions. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Be sent to the consent agenda. Move on to item C. This is a resolution of Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing acceptance of a grant from the AAA Auto. The amount of $2,500 to be used by Macon-Bibb County Fire Department. There are no matching funds for this. This is my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Be sent to consent agenda. Move on to D, a resolution of Macon-Bibb County Commission to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Macon Area Habitat for Humanity, whereby Macon-Bibb County will provide Neighborhood Stabilization Program grant funds in amount of $119,116 for construction of single-family homeownership at 4212 Roy Avenue in Linmore Estates neighborhood. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Second, Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion on that matter?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Question.
Commissioner Lucas, you.
Thank you. The amount of $119,116, this for construction, this is a single-family home. What will be the actual value of the home once it's constructed?
Ms. Jackson, can you answer that question for me, please?
Good morning. What we normally do is that after the construction is that there's an appraisal that's actually done with regards to the structure and the actual funding that's provided as far as the loan that on the house that's at no interest that Habitat does as far as that particular client is concerned.
Okay. One other question. Does Habitat have some properties now? Do they have some, what are their, what contracts do they have with your department now? And do they have properties that they've not used?
Currently, with our particular department, they have two that they're currently working on as far as those particular properties. They have those homeowners already identified, and then also if this one goes through, then they'll have three, and that homeowner has been identified as well.
Okay. How old are those contracts?
Two of those have been within the last 6 months, and then this will be the third one.
Hey, I was asking that because there's a reasonable amount of time that you would allow them. I know you do have to maintain oversight over
Yes, ma'am.
this since you're using public funds, but I wanted to make sure that some of these agencies were not just sitting on funds, or that they were carrying out what they asked us to help them with
Yes, ma'am.
in a reasonable amount of time.
Yes, ma'am, and these are very time sensitive, so if the project is not completed within the time frame that has been provided, then we have to actually provide a response to the Department of Housing, well, this particular one is the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, as to why it has not been completed, and then they will give us, this is what your ultimate deadline is.
Okay, yeah, because it is taxpayer. And this is the project where you have the families that help to
Yes, ma'am. There's
actually
also sweat
build
equity
their
that's put
homes.
into the project. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Commissioner Jones.
Just a comment and a question. Of course, if there's a loan involved, then it has to appraise for the purchase price, at least the purchase price. It can't appraise for higher. Just curious, who's the contractor?
In this particular one, normally what happens is with Habitat for Humanity is that they sub out those things that they cannot do, and then they have different crews that actually provide
Right.
sweat equity as well as volunteer labor as well.
So you don't have a general contractor?
They have a general that actually oversees the project itself, but then they have subcontractors that do like plumbing, electrical, things
Right.
of that nature, yes.
Sure, normal. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Howell?
Yeah, I just got a question about this, and I guess looking forward to the other ones coming up. With lumber prices and everything else doing what they're doing, skyrocketing now, is Habitat for Humanity, are they locked in on prices so that there won't be an additional charge but when they get through, or how's that working these days? I'm just curious.
For this particular project, I believe that they do already have that locked in, but moving forward, that is something that we will be evaluating with regards to construction prices, because you are correct that the prices of supplies are going up.
Yeah, like they've doubled in the last 4 months. So going forward, we need to look at that, because that's going to affect the bottom line on money.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell. And Ms. Jackson, if you don't mind staying there for the next couple here. We've got a motion and a second. No further discussion on that item. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. We move on to item E, which is a resolution of Macon-Bibb County Commission to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with Neighborhood Works, whereby Macon-Bibb County will provide funding under the Home Investment Partnership Program in an amount of $157,000 for the construction of a multifamily duplex at 1195 Ernest Street, and for rehab, a single-family home on 1320 Duncan Avenue. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Lucas. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that item? I'm sorry, I got Commissioner Watkins first.
First time I've heard of Making Neighborhood Works. Could you tell me a little bit about the organization?
This is an organization that has actually done several different projects since probably about 2011, probably about 16 different projects, wherein they have done home ownership opportunities as well as rental opportunities. They have done work in the Atlanta area, and they have also had one project they've done on their own in another location, and then they're now moving into the Macon area.
We've done 20 projects with them?
No,
okay,
I said these are that's just the background as far as
Okay.
done.
Any other questions?
And they're
Commissioner
all affordable housing type projects.
Any further questions, Commissioner? Watkins? Is that good? Commissioner Lucas, did you have a question?
Say that I am just so happy to see Ernest Street on here. Ernest Street, there's just some terrible, terrible stuff that was in there that was cleaned out, I believe, last year or the year before. But the other component of this, and what's most important, is that you put something back there, that you don't just leave this hole there. So this is really good. And then the other one is Duncan Avenue. And these are areas where you don't usually see new structures. And so this, to me, is just a good sign, and it enhances the neighborhood. So thank you for all that you do on these projects and lending the money and allowing these agencies to do that work.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Commissioner Wynn?
Yes, just to follow up, kind of like Commissioner Watkins, what is, the funding will be provided under the Home Investment Partnership Program?
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead, explain that to me.
The Home Investment Partnership Program are funds that we receive from the Department of Housing and Urban Development every year, and it's to provide low-income opportunities of affordable housing for low-income individuals.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. Commissioner Tillman?
I would like for your department to get us some information and data, because in going back to one of the resolutions about dealing with the insurance and these structures, I would like to see some data to show what it has been our growth in housing. Your department every year is delving out a lot of money and funding for new structures, but Macon-Bibb is not seeing any growth. And so I think between this commission, planning and zoning, and some other groups, that we have got to put some stuff in place with folks that want to come, number one, get money from us to construct new projects, but they also should have, and Mr. Attorney, we got to put for, I'm saying this, but I want to create some type of resolution and authority that these folks that want to come into our community, outside of borrowing money from us, that they have to, if they're going to build two structures, we want them to fix up a structure, because we have no growth. And I think part of the housing debacle back in 2008, where mama and granddad and auntie pass away, move out of the house, everybody wants a brand new house, nobody wants to move in mama, grandmama house, fix up the house, it becomes blighted and so forth, and we have no growth. But yet folks are still building properties, folks are asking us to help fund and build properties. So we need a system in place where if you're going to create so much new growth, that you have to give back to this community and help fix up some structures. And I think that's what if we're gonna, through P and Z, through Macon-Bibb, through the Macon Action Plan, that we've got to do something different. Because right now you see an aggressive administration that's serious about blight, and I'm excited, a lot of folks are. But what are we doing as we continue to grow new properties and the other ones just sit dormant and we don't have any growth? Do you have numbers, or can you get numbers to show us the growth that's in Macon? Because if we're not growing, we need to stop loaning this money. If we're not growing, we're putting new houses up, and the ones that's there is not being fixed up. Where's the growth coming from? So I would like to see numbers of Macon growing. And what is the rationale behind giving money for new structures if we have no growth?
And I can actually bring that information as to the projects that we've done in the last few years and where they're located and what the contribution was as far as the number of units.
I'm talking about growth. The census we know is here, that we're gonna do some stuff there. If Macon is not growing, why are we allowing people to build new structures, folks?
Thank you, Commissioner.
And my realtors up here can answer and respond to that. If Macon's not growing in numbers, why are we allowing new structures? Because if someone moves into the new structure, that means they moved out of something, and now what happens? It's becoming blighted, and it's becoming a Macon-Bibb commission issue of fixing it.
Thank you, Commissioner I'm sorry, Commissioner Tillman. Commissioner Watkins, you have a question?
Yes, I guess following up to Commissioner Tillman, what he said was real interesting, because since 2009, my understanding of since 2009, the population of Macon has declined by like 1%. But also, we've built like close to 15 to 20,000 new units of housing. And we keep on doing it while the population, so I get, it's an interesting point that Commissioner Tillman is making. We're incentivizing growth and creating our own blight because we build a new house or a new apartment complex, and that's what you see. New apartment complexes have created density for our population, but the old traditional single-family houses, there was no one available to move in, hence the chronic blight, the nobody's responsible. We talk a lot about like in the blight conversation, we talk about the community being accountable and the owner being accountable, but there's something to be said when it's a whole block. There's something systemically wrong. And usually those type of mistakes come from the government. And not to say that anybody's wrong, but we've incentivized the growth of new housing and funded it while not, like I say, Tillman, addressing the blighted houses and the burned structures. It's something interesting to work on. So is neighborhood home stabilization money available for redevelopment projects, or is it only for new construction?
With neighborhood stabilization funds, that is an actual funding source that is now in the process of being closed out. So as we move forward, there are no additional funds that would be available as far as the state of Georgia to receive those particular funds. The funds that we will have that remaining will be our home funds that we receive for affordable housing units.
So is these two right here the remaining neighborhood stabilization? This will zero out the account, or?
Yeah, there's the first one for Habitat for Humanity
was
with
zeroing
neighborhood
it out?
yes, and then the second one is actually home funds.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Watkins. Commissioner Jones, you had a question?
Just to comment to Commissioner Tillman, I'm not sure, I guess you're talking about growth as far as population goes, and our population is in a decline, but I would submit to you by virtue of someone coming in and building new homes, that increases, it's a positive for our community. And many times in the real estate market, in most transactions, the buyer actually gets a better home than the seller had because they've gone through an inspection process and they've had an amendment to address concerns with the property, and it's been repaired or replaced. So the normal process, I think that's what you would see over and over again, but I know you're talking about homes that maybe were in very ill repair. But I think by virtue of whoever's building these new homes, they're making a positive contribution that will hopefully in the long run enhance and help increase our population. So I don't know that you could require them to do something else. I think that's a positive in and of itself.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Bronson, you had a question?
Yes, sir. So while I agree with the Mayor Tillman, Commissioner Tillman, on the statement, I think for us it's kind of a simultaneous growth, right? When it boils down to developing homes and so forth, we have to do our job to ensure that the opportunity is present, whether or not that's through business growth, development around the area and so forth. So we have to kind of work hand in hand with that. So I get both points in regards to developing a home while at the same time ensuring that populations want to come and live in that home. Case in point, so out of curiosity, is there a program in place when we say we're developing a home that you place a family or you select a family to come and stay in that home, or is that just placed on the market and whoever wants to come buy it type deal?
What normally happens is it depends upon the actual, most of our things that we're doing, that an agency has actually applied to us through a round of open workshops where we talk about, we have funding available, these are applications that are being presented. In most instances, several of them, they already have a structure in place as to this is how this particular home buyer will be actually determined.
Okay.
There's also different information that's put together as far as the Department of Housing and Urban Development that gives us income limits, that no one above this particular income limit, depending upon the number in your household, can actually be eligible for that particular structure, because again, it is trying to create affordable opportunities for low-income individuals. And on the rental side, there's also information from the Department of Housing and Urban Development where they identify for every community, this is the ceiling upon, this is how much you can charge for rent for a particular unit. Understanding that, again, we're trying to provide affordable housing opportunities for individuals. So there's actual limits that we must adhere to according to the funding source.
So I'm pretty sure you've already answered this question. So for us, say for instance, we have a blighted home that's mid-level livable, right? We can basically work with you guys to come in and redevelop that home in those particular areas, or is that?
Yes, we have actually had some applications that have come in that have actually been rehabbed. The one for Duncan Avenue here is actually a rehab.
Awesome.
That they will be rehabbing that particular structure.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Bronson. Commissioner Tillman, you have something new?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. You're going to get a lot of credit for amplifying this blight that Commissioner Watkins and former Commissioner Bibbins have been fighting for. But Wanzina, Ms. Jackson, here's our issue. We're lending out money with no growth. And we did a moratorium, we want to say, on liquor stores and pawn shops, particularly in the 31204-06 area. In the same 31204, same 31206, I challenge this commissioner or anybody. Where is a new housing development that's happened over the last 10, 15 years? Is one. Beaumont Heights is the only place that's building in the 31206 area or 31204. And the Macon Housing Authority. They are truly creating affordable housing. And then there's this guy that's getting away with building some stuff over in Beaumont Heights that y'all would be shameful to go and live in. So there's no new construction. So maybe we need to look at a moratorium on construction and definitely loaning folks our money if they're not gonna fix up existing properties. Mr. Mayor and this administration commission, I would say that all those 840 structures, if folks wanna come in here and build, that if we're gonna loan them some money, we loan them some money and give them these properties and take them off our tax digest where they can put them back on and we can loan them some money to fix up those projects. But I don't think we should continue to be giving folks new money for new projects and we don't have any growth coming. And I'll yield until I get with Attorney Groover and see what we can create.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman. I do want to try to stay on topic. This is part of a larger discussion that I look forward to having with the commission. One other thing, and I don't want to open up a can of worms, but just one other thing we need to look at, not these 849 structures, but we need to provide some gap financing for those who want to repair their own homes. A lot of these neighborhoods have a lot of situations, but because of the blight around their houses and because of the burnouts they have, they're unable to get the proper appraisals that they need to get to make the most necessary improvements to their own homes and to be able to repair them because the appraisal is simply not there, and they're not able to borrow the money needed to fix them and repair those houses. And I think we can work diligently together to find some gap funding for them so they can borrow the money to stabilize those neighborhoods. I'm gonna have one final question, and I'm gonna close this out from Commissioner Howell.
Not to belabor the point any further than we already have, and the housing situation in Macon is a lot broader than these two things, but to reiterate what Commissioner Lucas said, in these two cases that we're talking about now, I'm happy to see that there is something going back into these neighborhoods, which to the point of what's some of the discussion, this is an example of something going back in those neighborhoods. So, thank you.
Thank you, and also this is a reminder that these are HUD grants. Ms. Jackson, we appreciate all the good work that you always do, and we don't tell you that enough. We certainly appreciate what you're doing in our community, and we look forward to having further conversations with you. Okay.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second in this item. All the discussion is over. Can I get a vote this time? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you very much. That motion carries unanimously to be sent to consent agenda. We're going to move on to item F. It's a resolution of Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the mayor. I'm sorry. Sorry, just one second.
Leaves, if at some time in the near future we could get an update on the CARES funding that came in and how her department utilized, not now, because I don't want to stop the progress, but we got a lot of money into community development department. I think, what, 1.5 million, and she had a plan, and I'd just like to have us updated on what programs were impacted. I know some of them, but I'd just like to be able to say, oh yeah, that money was used just like it was supposed to, and it did impact our COVID situation.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. And Ms. Jackson, if you don't mind, in March, we'll schedule a time to come back to give a progress report on those CARES Act funding on that. Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I just had a quick, I thought we were on item D, and I was waiting to request till we got to item E. I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to request that I be added as a co-sponsor for item E, please.
Thank you, Pro Tem Clark. That motion carries unanimously to be sent to consent agenda. We're moving on to item F at this time. This is a resolution of the Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the mayor to execute a lease agreement with WKB Properties, LLC, 106 Anderson Avenue, Fort Valley, Georgia, in the amount of $900 per month, plus utilities and insurance, payable out of the Circuit Public Defender's Office budget. That's a lot to say. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Lynn. Wynn, this is we have offices in Fort Valley since we're Bibb, Peach, and Crawford Circuit for public defenders. Their lease has expired and have a new location. This is a lease for that location. We have a motion and a second, no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. We're going to move on to streetlight request. Commissioners, you should have received instructions on what someone needs to do. We asked that be sent to each of you to know the process and procedure for streetlights. I hope that answers all your questions. If you have additional questions in that regard, please direct your questions to our county manager, Keith Moffitt, Dr. Moffitt. But at this time, we're going to move on to a couple items that we have under that category. Item A is a resolution approving a request for installation of one street light along San Juan Avenue pursuant to Article 10 of Chapter 29 of the Code to be paid from Facilities Management budget. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Wynn. I'm going to call you Wynn today. Any discussion in that matter? Commissioner Lucas.
On these street lights, I know the process that we go through. You know, the people in the area have to do their thing, and then we do certain things. But now in our in the SPLOST issue, we placed money for different categories, and one was, I think, street lights and it was pedestrian safety was the overarching category. And then there were several other categories where maybe street lights would fall as well. I would like for us to look at determining where street lights need to be. And I know we can do it already, but I'm talking about on a larger scale. Because our citizens voted for the SPLOST. They're already paying into that. And I think we ought to stop charging them for safety that they're already paying for, especially the street lights. So I'm just throwing it out there as something for us to discuss and think about and see if we have enough money in that particular fund to identify those places where we need street lights and go ahead and put them in.
Okay.
And I think people would appreciate that if your street is dark and you've been calling every year for the street light, but it's been determined maybe that it's 2 feet away from, the distance requirement or something. This would be something that I think citizens would really appreciate us doing without having them to go through, going to everybody and, collecting money and stuff like this. So that's just a request.
And Commissioner Lucas, I understand your concern, certainly on the high traffic areas, we don't have that. From a pedestrian safety, I think we probably could use SPLOST money. One thing we have to be mindful of is that although they contribute some money to purchase these streetlights, we're forever on the hook for the utility bills associated with all these, and that's a growing number that's not accounted for in the budget, and we have to be mindful of additional expenses down the road. We can't use the SPLOST money to pay those expenses from here out. So those are some things. I certainly will ask Ms. Moore in the strategic budget planning to look at the items on the SPLOST to see how much funds we have allocated for that specific purpose,
Okay.
and maybe do a needs assessment and get some input from commissioners.
That would be
on
great.
doing that part. Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have a motion and second. Commissioner Wynn, you have a question?
Yeah, just one small question. I thought this was odd that we're only asking for one street light on San Juan. I'm familiar with San Juan. That's kind of odd. Back to what you said, the residents don't have to pay for this if there's an existing pole that the light can be set on. So the only thing they'd have to pay for is that $100 fee to get the inspection done. Isn't that correct?
As far as I know.
Yeah.
You read the same materials I read, and I didn't read anything else into it.
Well,
But this is their request, not our request. So we have a motion and second, no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you very much. We'll send that to consent agenda. You have a resolution approving a request for installation of streetlights, 3 streetlights on Sunset Drive pursuant to Article 10, Chapter 29 of the Code to be paid from the facilities management budget. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second? Who is that, Commissioner Jones? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that item? No discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you for that vote. We'll send that to consent agenda. Move on to contracts for implementation or renewal. This is item A, is a resolution to authorize the mayor to execute a renewal contract with Global Spectrum LP by extending the term of the agreement in exchange for making capital improvements and amount of $250,000 to Macon Centerplex. That resolution is sponsored by Commissioner Tillman and myself. Commissioner Tillman, can I get your motion?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Commissioner Tillman. Is there a second? Commissioner Jones has a second. I'll open the floor for discussions. Commissioner Jones.
The capital improvements, can you delineate what those are?
Yeah, where's David at? Okay. We'll get him to come out here and respond, Commissioner Jones. The $250,000 has not been decided yet on how they will be spent. That will be up to us based on the needs. Just in short.
They must have given us some sort of things we needed to do, some sort of list. Do we know? There they come.
Good morning. We have a question for Commissioner Jones, but first of all, I want to make sure that you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and where you're from, so other commissioners may know the same information, and then we'll ask you your question, okay?
Sounds good. David Aiello, General Manager for Spectra Venue Management, and we run the auditorium and the arena.
Good morning. My name is Brian Martin. I'm the Assistant General Manager for the complex as well.
And thank both of you gentlemen for being here today. Commissioner Jones asked a question in regards to $250,000 if there's any specific requests or items that you're considering right now to spend that money on.
The only thing we ask for is that it's used for revenue enhancement opportunities. So we will look to work with you guys and the mayor and his administration to come up with a plan that's mutually beneficial for both sides.
Commissioner Jones, that answer your question?
Well, not really. So, you're gonna decide on items at a later date?
Yes, sir.
That we would approve? Okay.
That money's being set aside. We're looking for a need assessment, something we will bring back before the commission to let you know what we want to spend it on, and then we'll go up to the $250,000 amount. Because some things may not be known right now. And during the times of the lease, we may get some other interests or needs that need to be met. Commissioner Lucas, you have a question?
Yeah, just for everybody's information, this renewal, the renewal agreement, can the legal kind of outline what's involved in that? Because it's not, it looks simple, but it's really not.
Sure. We'll give you a little bit more detail from Attorney Groover.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
If y'all look at the renewal, it just provides, I mean, the agreement with Spectrum by law it has to re-up every year, and it provides that we can renew for periods of a period of 5 years, which is what's attached here. Now, that being said, it's really a year-to-year relationship under state law for a multi-year contract. So there's nothing, it doesn't change the, unless I'm missing something, it doesn't change the substantive terms of the services or the pay or the amortization or for the money that the $250,000. Otherwise, it's just a term renewal. Is that fair?
Any other questions, Commissioner Lucas? Commissioner
Okay,
Tillman, you have.
and the $250,000, is that direct money, or is this, would you be implementing any items under the 250,000, or would that be totally our decision?
It's both. We can work with mayor and you guys to come up with a plan, or we can do it on our own. I know in the initial 5-year term, I believe it was $200,000 that we worked on a transition plan, and we were able to get some F&B equipment. So we'll be happy to work with you guys on that.
So under the first go round, you made the determination as to how the 200,000 was going to be spent. This time, you're not just cutting a check to us. You're really, this is actually not $250,000 direct funds to Macon-Bibb, right?
It doesn't go directly into the operating account. Right. It's used for events down the line or projects that we want to do that'll make our jobs easier.
Okay. My only problem with our arrangement is that, and I know we were running a deficit over the years. We were running a deficit. I know that it's been reduced, and I think it's to your credit. You've brought in lots and lots of performances, and for the entire community, a variety. I want us at some point, though, to start receiving more. Like, you get the funds that come in. What do y'all get? What does Spectra get?
We just get a monthly management fee, and then depending on the budget that we put in place, we get an incentive on top of that. So we don't get anything from events. We just get the monthly management fee.
Okay. My only point is I just want everybody to know that we aren't actually, like, if there's a show over there, then give us an example of how that's handled. All right, you got Tyler Perry.
Yep. Yes. So everything goes into a bank account that is technically owned by you guys. We have an event bank account, and then an operating bank account. And then at the end of the show, we settle with the actual artist or the show, and all those funds stay within the bank account that's Macon-Bibb's. So the only thing that we do is once a month we write a check to corporate office.
To your corporate
Correct.
office?
Yep, for the management fee.
Okay. On parking, do we get the parking?
Yep. The county gets 100% of that. Yep.
We get all of that?
Yep.
And what else? Concessions?
Concessions, 100% as well. The only thing that's a little bit different is sponsorships, where corporate gets 12.5% of that, but then the other majority of that stays with the county as well.
Okay. What was our last deficit?
It was 891, and that was with 3.5 months canceled due to COVID.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted everybody to understand a little bit more about this arrangement. It's not just like, you know, y'all have a show and then everything comes in to Macon-Bibb. There's some built-in fees that y'all are getting for running these things for us. And I want to compliment you on your inventories, too, of what's wrong with the Coliseum and Auditorium, because we've been able to pinpoint some things that we're going to go down and get them fixed. And hopefully we can continue doing that.
Long
Y'all are
list of
in the
things.
SPLOST, too, aren't
Yep.
you?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. Commissioner Tillman, do you have a question?
I wanted David to speak on the concert series outdoors, because I think because some folks are not as equipped online to understand a lot what's going on. Over the last year, probably a year and a half, I've probably met and talked to this group more than I ever have been, because I try and keep up with them, and I've given them sometimes what I could say a hard time to get it right, because you know, having been in the business, one of the things, Commissioner, that we will be impressed, and I want you guys to share it, is with this pandemic happening, and I brought an idea and suggestion, and he was working on it, outdoor concerts. How can we make money with the pandemic? And I was like, man, I saw something online, and you know, so tell us the creativity of how we continue to do concerts and the creativity outside. And most folks don't even know Snoop Dogg was here for a week or two in Macon, and they were a part of this, making it work and with this new pandemic. So please share that, if you will, because a lot of folks just don't know.
Yeah, so obviously our industry is one of the industries that's been hit hardest by the pandemic. So I got to give a lot of credit to our staff. One of the things that we've done is we've created a revenue generating committee where we've come up with a number of events. One, to Al's credit, is drive-in concerts. We did drive-in movies as well. Anything from The Sandlot to Trolls to anything and everything for everybody. We did a couple drive-in concerts where we set up a stage right in front of the main doors of the arena, and we had some pretty good success with that. The thing that we've always noticed throughout the pandemic is people always want to be entertained, and they're ready to come back for live entertainment as well. So, you know, that's really kept our staff busy, is planning these in-house events. We also did a couple of events at the auditorium. We did fitness on the patios every Saturdays, where we had yoga instructors come down and teach yoga. And around Christmas time, we did an event called Wine and Pine, where people could come build a wreath and have some wine and just get into the Christmas spirit as well. So we've been able to keep ourselves occupied by doing a lot of those in-house events. And what we're seeing right now is hopefully in the fall of next year, we're going to be back and raring to go with events inside too.
Thank you for that information. Commissioner Wynn, you had a question?
No, I'm not really. I never got a real true answer for what the 250,000 was for. You said revenue enhancements.
Yeah, so any type of project that'll bring revenue back to the city. So what we did the last time is we bought a software that will give us more points of sale to sell concessions. So obviously it's things like that we'll sit down and work with you guys on to come up with a plan that's mutually beneficial for us and for you guys.
Okay.
So basically, they're going to make the capital outlay of $250,000 that we reap the benefits for, because all the money goes to us, as opposed to them getting a percentage of that money. They get a monthly management fee as well as a percentage of the sponsorship that they have on there. So, and that's to be determined. That's why we don't know what it is right now.
We were asking.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. Commissioner Jones, do you have a final question?
The last comment, and you guys do a good job, and you've reduced our deficit ever since you've been here, so I appreciate all you've done, and I appreciate Commissioner Lucas's questions because it refreshes our memory on different arrangements. But in short, the 250,000 is subject to the commission's approval, so it's really to be determined. So
Correct.
that's it in a nutshell.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Commissioner Watkins?
Yes, how you doing? Remind me, so pre-COVID, what was your net like, and how has COVID impact you since?
So the year prior to COVID, we finished at 605 as a deficit. Last year we were 891. Prior to COVID, we were probably tracking to finish conservatively around 700,000, high 600s. So we were pretty much in line with that 605.
So if COVID continues through June, what are you expecting?
Yeah, so we have hockey games scheduled the rest of this fiscal year, along with some GHSA events. And it's going to be hard to target a specific deficit because we've got some things hanging out in the balance that could swing it in a positive direction.
So somewhere in the ballpark of the 890 and the 605, nothing
It
major?
could be a little higher. I'll say it definitely won't be anywhere near where it was prior to us.
What's that mean?
That was 1.7.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Watkins. No further question. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to 6B. This is a resolution, and you guys may be excused. Thank you for your time. You notice I said you guys because he said that about 5 times. You guys. All right. A resolution of the Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the mayor to execute a professional service agreement with geotechnical and environmental consultants in the amount of $9,875 for storage tank removal, sample testing, and closure reporting services on the construction site at 1853 Jeffersonville Road to be paid by 2018 SPOS funds road work. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion on that item? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Be sent to consent agenda. Item C is a resolution of the Macon-Bibb County Commission to authorize the mayor to execute a general construction contract with McWright LLC in the amount of $245,440 for renovation, development of the Sheriff's Office Outreach and Restorative Justice Center to be paid from 2018 SPOS funds, Public Safety Sheriff's Building. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Bronson. Commissioner Watkins, you have a question?
Yes, sir. My question is for the sheriff, and it has to do with the conditions of the jail. I just saw a very disturbing article on Channel 13. I was hoping I could get some background on.
No, sir. We'll do that shortly. Thank you. Commissioner Watkins, I'll take care of your question shortly, okay? Any other questions specific to this item here?
A little update on where we are on all of that, because it's a one.
Yes, ma'am. We have an executive session scheduled. We'd be happy.
Oh, okay, okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Tillman.
what was your comment about he wanting to
We
hear
have
from
an
the sheriff?
executive session scheduled shortly. That item can be covered in an executive session. It's something I don't think we need to talk about, put the sheriff in a situation right now.
Well, hold on now, because I mean, this is a public meeting, so there may be some stuff publicly that the sheriff can answer and respond to, because this thing has been floating through, I know, my inbox, emails, and then I was not aware it hit 13 because, and so if it's on the news, there may be some things that he can discuss that we can hear public, because I will be honest, I dismissed it. I told people to show me proof, and I said this could come from anywhere in the country, just showing somebody a photo. So we can discuss specifics, and those of us that have been through leadership Macon, and any commissioner can go and take a tour of the jail. I don't think anybody's ever been denied. I've had a tour of the jail. Anybody can take a tour of the jail. Folks call and inquire all the time. So I think we have to be cautious and careful when we just dismiss and say we want to just talk about something in executive session that's out in the public. And I'm not trying to put you nor the sheriff on the spot, but there may be some stuff that he can share, that he can let the public know that everything is in order. Because what's going to happen now is, that's why we may need a public safety committee, because we don't control the sheriff. He's a separate entity, but we have family, friends, and associates that's in the jail now.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman. With all due respect, we will visit that item after executive session, and the sheriff will remain here for your questions when we come out of executive session. So I ask you to respect the chair on this position. We will have an open meeting after the executive session. That will be public.
Are you saying to respect the chair because we're going to learn some information outside the public's view?
Commissioner Tillman, I am saying what I'm saying, and I do not want to get into any further, okay? So at this time, we have a motion and a second. There's no other discussion unless it's specific to this item. Yes, sir, we got a motion and a second.
I see this item as being relevant to what I'm asking about. We're asking for money to the sheriff's office for improvements to a building. I've been presented with a jail that seems like it could need improvements. And unless y'all are showing me another plan that adjusts the jail, I'm not ready to vote for this, even though I like a restorative justice some. But apparently we got to see people sleeping on floors. Like, I need an answer to that before I can move on. So I would make a motion that we table this.
I understand your
till
position.
after the thing.
I understand your position. Sheriff Davis, you come up and answer that question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I'm aware of the news reports that had came out yesterday. I did a interview about that. There's some pictures that have circulated on social media about some overcrowding in the jail, and I think it is appropriate for me to clear up and to, if there is any questions about that. That particular area is our isolation area for quarantine. We set up a protocol almost a year ago based on consultation with the Department of Public Health, CDC guidelines, as well as other jails throughout Georgia to see how to mitigate the COVID crisis. One of the things that was suggested is that people who are first brought into the jail, you isolate those individuals for a period of time. It first started off being 2 weeks, 14 days, but then after consultation with health and CDC guidelines, we reduced that down to 10 days. But for the first 10 days that a person is brought into the Bibb County Jail, and this is not unlike various other jails throughout Georgia, they are placed in one of two housing units. And as you can imagine, when you have people coming into jail and you have more arrests or whatever, it will sort of backlog the individuals who may be in those particular housing units. And we try to move them out as quickly as we can. And then sometimes, yes, they are having to sleep on the floor, but it's not like on the floor. We have beddings, we call them boats is what they are. They're like a little mattress with a pad and all that they have to sleep on the floor during those few days. And it's never more than just a few days because people are cycling out of that as other cells become available in the rest of the jail. We have nearly 800 people in our jail now, which is below our cap, but that's just something that we've had to do to mitigate that. And because of those measures that we have taken, we've had only 10 cases of people in our jail who have been resided in our jail have had COVID. And once somebody comes in and exhibits any type of symptoms or tests positive, they are immediately moved to another isolation unit to where that they are, quarantined and taken care of, and then they get over it and go back into general population. And that is not typically how we would like to run things. We don't want to have people on the floor, but because of this, you have to make these type things happen to protect the other 600 inmates in the jail, so to make sure that somebody's not coming in with an illness that could spread into the general population. And that has happened in some other jails. Some of my colleagues have had stories that somebody gets in their jail and their whole jail about catches COVID. So we've been very diligent about that, and I don't want to ever see anybody on the floor, but these are sometimes short-term circumstances to mitigate a long-term problem that could happen if somebody came in and spread the virus throughout the jail.
Couple questions.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Still concerned about the floor situation, so the only place that folks are sleeping on the floor is in the quarantine area.
That's right. In those quarantine, in those I almost call it isolation quarantine areas. The first area that they come into the jail whenever they are being screened.
So how many cots or bedding rigs are you short from being able to, like?
It's really not a situation of being short. When you look at the number of cells, I mean, our facility can hold 966 inmates. And so right along now, we're averaging between 790 up to about 820 people in our jail. It's not so much that we are overcrowded generally throughout the whole jail. It's that in this particular area, because you have to fill up we have this particular area that is designated as our isolation, quarantine, holding facility for people who are coming in and moving out. Sometimes these individuals make bond, sometimes they move on through into general population or whatever. And then sometimes when we try to move them out, there have to be places to put them, because we have classifications based on charges, based on their behavior and that sort of thing. So you have to make sure you get them into the right housing unit after they have gone through the 10 days of isolation. And then we've had some situations with some of our cells in the older part of the jail. We're in a 40-year-old jail now. 41 years now. We moved into that jail in 1980. And so there have been situations with some of the cells that have been a problem since 1980. And so some of those things continue on to this day. And so our maintenance staff is constantly working on the cells. There are ways that inmates can get in there and jimmy up the cell door that keeps it from closing and those kinds of things. And so that was the technology of about 1977, whenever that jail was built. There's newer ways to do things now. So that's another thing that we have to deal with.
So 2 questions, I think. I'm hopeful.
Okay.
So, and I know this isn't a you problem, but because you're just receiving folks who are charged. So everyone that's in the jail has been charged and convicted and found guilty of a crime, or there's some folks just awaiting?
No. Some of our people.
Can I interrupt this for a second? And I'm not. Everybody has a right to hear this explanation, but I don't want to put the sheriff in a position, given this unusual circumstance with COVID, that some of these questions might be more appropriately answered in an executive session, and then come back out. As the county attorney, my recommendation would, and I think there's been a lot of good explanation surrounding that, but then if you go into executive session and ask some of these questions, and then we can determine what's appropriately shared with the public at this juncture, because this is a very new development. Is that correct, Sheriff?
Well, this particular situation, we've had people, unfortunately, since the day one that we've had this protocol in place,
Right.
there have been some people on the floor, and
Right.
sometimes it's like filling up a glass.
No, I understand.
and it's over,
But my recommendation at this point, and nothing's been said that is troubling to me in terms of just explanation, but I just think it's more appropriate at this juncture to flesh the rest of this out in executive session. You've got good questions, but then I can determine intelligently what might be more appropriate to be shared at this juncture. It's just a new development that I, as county attorney, would like to hear a little bit more of, and that's just my recommendation. Of course, it's up to the commission and the chair, but that will be my recommendation.
All right, and I can wait for the executive session, but just one last thing. I still have the answer about the charge in my till then, but I guess that's a cause. But I don't know. And I don't know if any of us ever have known. But you see it every day. I don't know the conditions of our jail. School, great. What are the actual conditions of the jail? Is it something that we should truly be concerned about here, or is this a minor thing from, I honestly want to know, like, is it a grade 80 or am I dealing with a 50? Like,
Well, we have people come in every year. The grand jury comes in to looks at the jail. That's part of one of their responsibilities, to come in and look at the jail. A couple of years ago, they came into one of our housing units and sort of saw some discrepancies there, and we went in there and refurbished it, repainted it, and did some. Right now, we're fixing to spend about $40,000 on a new boiler to make sure that the heating and air is working correctly in the jail. So we're doing everything all the time to keep to keep the jail up. But it is an older facility. Part of it is going on 40-something years old. The newer part's going on about 20 years old. So when you have a facility like that that's being used 24/7 around the clock for all of those years, you're going to have issues. But these particular situations that we're here now would manifest themselves whether we had a 40-year-old jail or a 1-year-old jail. It's about mitigating a circumstance due to COVID and getting people spaced in so that we do not have a pandemic within the jail population. That's one of the two main responsibilities of keeping a jail, is to keep people in the jail. And then the second one is to make sure that those individuals who are in the jail are cared for and are not harmed in any way. And so I feel that we've done a very good job with what we have to mitigate those issues.
And Sheriff, that goes to both public safety, the safety of the inmates, as well as to security of the jail. Is that accurate? You would agree with all that?
That's right.
Okay.
And also, we have to make sure that our staff back there remains safe and COVID-free. Now, we've had very, very few cases of COVID amongst the inmates. Now, our staff, on the other hand, we've had a number of that, both in the jail deputies as well as throughout the rest of the sheriff's office. I don't think we're any different than any other workplace that has had to suffer with that, because even throughout county government, we've had that and had to mitigate that. In fact, yesterday, about 100 of our employees went and got the first COVID shot. My arm's still sore. So we are taking care of that to get our folks taken care of in that regard too.
thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Watkins, for drawing that motion to table. Commissioner Tillman, do you have something to add?
Yes. First of all, thank you for being willing to answer this public. I have never seen the news report. My only question is, because I haven't reached out to anyone, is that a photo supposedly I saw was an accurate photo, is my only question. Apparently, because if a news report reported that, and that was my only question.
Yeah. I will stipulate, as if we say in a court of law, that was in our jail.
Okay, and
so,
I'll reserve any other questions or comments
all right.
until.
All right, I'll admit to that.
Okay, all right. Well, I just thought somebody brought further attention to themselves by taking such a photo, but I'll reserve any other questions or comments at a later time. And thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you.
Turn my own mic on. Okay, we have a motion and a second. No further discussion on that item. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Be sent to the consent agenda. We'll move on to item D, which is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter a contract with Georgia Department of Transportation for engineering design services for Macon Downtown Airport Runway Reconstruction Design Project to be funded a total amount of $130,887, of which $124,342.65 will be from federal funds and $6,544.35 will be from state funds with no local match required. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Second. Got a second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. Be sent to the consent agenda. Move on to item E. That's a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a Georgia Department of Transportation Project Framework Agreement to provide funding for preliminary engineering services related to the Old Muckey Heritage Trail in the amount of $400,000 with a $100,000 local match to be paid out of the Macon-Bibb County fiscal year 2022 budget. This is part of a $1.8 million award that we received on that grant, and there will also be help on this match from other departments. That motion is sponsored by myself. Can I get a second?
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Jones. Questions? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries, will be sent to consent agenda. Commissioners, we're going to move on to informational items on number 7. These are items that we're not asking for a vote on today. But just for full transparency, we're going to tell you what those items are and tell you what the next steps are. 7A is an ordinance to establish an automatic traffic enforcement safety device program in Macon-Bibb County school zones to provide for the enforcement of such program. You will be receiving information if you haven't already done so today. You'll receive information later today with a copy of the ordinance and the laws attached thereto. This is a joint effort with Macon-Bibb County government, the school system, Department of Transportation, the courts, as well as the solicitor's office. This is a civil citation that will allow for all monies received from those civil citations to be used for public safety purposes. The reason we're not asking for a vote today is we're going to bring this back before you after you had an opportunity to review this in 2 weeks before we ask for any vote. So I hope you'll trust that's an informational item only. We will be doing this on a regular basis when you get new information at a late juncture, so we're not asking you to vote. We're going to give you plenty of opportunity to evaluate and do your due diligence and ask the questions. So therefore, we'll come back in 2 weeks with a vote on that. Please direct any questions after you receive those ordinance to our office, and we'll be happy to provide answers to you. Mr. Lucas, do you have a question? You're
No, I just wanted to say that pedestrian safety endorses that school traffic. That's been one of the main things to get traffic lights and also sidewalks in those areas of especially schools. So
Right.
we endorse that.
And I do want to talk to you in detail about that in your board, because I think there may be a possibility to utilize some of those funds that we collect to advocate for that area as well.
Okay.
So I appreciate that. We'll move on to item B. Item B, 7B, is the local maintenance improvement grant. Each of you will receive, if you haven't already received, a complete copy of the roads that are anticipated paving. You should receive also a process for that to let the new commissioners know, as well as the other commissioners, the process, the step-by-step process on how these roads get on this list. Likewise, we're not asking for a vote on that today. We want to have enough time, but we are running on deadlines. We have gotten an extension on this. This is for the next round of paving for this next year. So each of you will review those items. If you have any questions or concerns or want to add or subtract roads from that with good basis, those will be considered. Keep in mind, we have a limited amount of money to work for, and we still have to work for around that framework. So if you have any questions in that regard, please forward those to Dr. Keith Moffitt. Between now and the next 2 weeks, we'll be asking for a vote, and it'll be important at that time to vote on that issue so we don't lose the funding. Commissioner Wynn?
I thought item number 13 on there was kind of funny. We wait and we wait and we wait and we wait. Do you remember reading that?
Oh, on there, yeah. You talking about on the process? Yeah, the process. We don't want to lose the funding, but we also want to prioritize it. But sometimes we as commissioners look at areas that we drive each day in our own districts, and we determine that there are roads that need to be repaired, but there's already been some expert who has reviewed those on a full scale, and we have to provide equity across all the districts. And I think that's the intent.
It's just that when we got to them, back to them, it was wait for them, you know.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. So that item will appear in 2 weeks on ask you for a vote at committee meeting. This time, does anyone want to take a comfort break? We're about to get into the solid waste, and it may take a good while on that. If you do, we'll take a comfort break for just 5 minutes and come back. So okay, we're back on. Thank you, everyone, for allowing the opportunity for us to take a comfort break. We've got some more work to do, and the last 3 items here, I'll set those up for you first. Will be all related. As you recall, at our previous meeting, we signed an MSA agreement, master service agreement, with Hofsteller Consultant, and indicated at that time we would bring a plan back to you within 2 weeks of some specific, what we call tasks, and what Commissioner Wynn likes to refer to as projects. These are tasks, and that's the legal definition, and that's what we're going to go by. So we have three of those such items today. Like I said, they're interrelated, and I know you may have some questions, but let me address each one of those specifically before we call them up forward to make a presentation or answer any questions you have. The first task you'll notice is item B. This is a resolution of Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the mayor to execute a task release agreement with Hofstadter and Associates to provide the management and compliance services for the Walker Road landfill in the amount of $197,340,000 payable out of 2018 SPOS revenue. This is for the Walker Road landfill. What this specific item will be addressing is some pre-closure maintenance that needs to be done at the landfill. This will involve a third-party company coming in to change the slopes and move the garbage there that's not in compliance now and make sure that we follow all EPD guidelines. This is a prerequisite to doing the closure that will substantially save us money in the long run. This money will be used out of the SPOS dollars, but just for your knowledge, because we're asking to do this, we will not need to fill the top two positions we have over there at the landfill, which will be the director and the second supervisor. Those positions alone cost the county with benefits and salary $225,000 a year. That will be a savings for the general fund. The other reason is we're anticipating closing landfill with other items we have. This is the first step. This is a contract, $16,000 per month for labor that's going to come over there to work to get this in form. We also expect the possibility of having substantial savings on dirt. We believe that with the proper equipment that we could actually change this where you could spray instead of having daily dirt cover to having weekly or monthly dirt cover, which will save substantial money. Our obligation to the taxpayers here, I think, will be met with some things later on here. But one thing I want you to know or keep in mind is I've requested the last 4 years of landfill costs and expenses. Each of those years resulted in a loss. Those losses are $1.2 million, $922,000, $848,000, and $1.87 million. I think it's very apparent that we need to do something to close the landfill immediately, and that's why we're taking these steps. So that will be task one. Task two, resolution is authorizing the mayor to execute a task release agreement with Hofstadter Association. This is the engineering, design, and construction of services on Walker Road landfill. Fee equal to 8% of the price of the closure contract to be determined payable of the 2018 SPOS revenue. This is a percentage that they charge, and this is a turnkey operation on closure of the landfill. They will put out all the RFPs, all the requests, do all the consulting, and bring back before this commission for a final vote. They will not get paid until we take a final vote and determine what the price and the method of the landfill closure will be. So by doing this today, you're not approving any particular method or any company. This is merely to allow them to send out the RFPs to start the process. Item 3, or D, is a resolution of Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the mayor to execute a task release agreement with Hofstadter Associates to provide engineering, design, and construction, observation services, and for 5 solid waste convenience centers in a total amount of $120,000 payable out of SPOS revenues. As you recall, we've had some conversations through our transition period, and I've spoken to this commission about convenience centers. These are convenience centers that are strategically located across our county to help combat illegal dumping, but also provide reasonable places where our citizens who wish to could drop off at no cost to theirs other debris, not household trash, but other debris. And we're also using those as recycle centers. The cost of each one of those for this consultant is $24,000 estimate per location. We're choosing locations that we already own. We do not anticipate the cost of each of these convenience centers to cost over $150,000 per site. If you remember, these are what we call mini transfer stations. This commission, through a previous SPOS, had budgeted almost $5 million for transfer station. Our plan will cause for just under $1 million total to meet the same obligation. This is an alternative method of collecting trash. Those are the 3 items. I'm going to call one by one. I'm going to ask Mr. Hofstadter to come up to answer any questions, and we'll take each item one by one. So the first item I'm going to have, and I'll make this. We're asking for a vote on this? Yeah. Okay. I'll make the. You can go ahead up there. You can go ahead and take a second. I'll go ahead and read this in the record, make the motion a second, and then we'll just start the discussion process. I'm going to do one at a time. These are independent, but they all work collaboratively together. The first one is a resolution of Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the mayor to execute a task release agreement with Hofstadter and Associates to provide project management and compliance services at the Walker Road landfill in an amount of $197,340 payable out of 2008 SPOS revenues, Walker Road landfill. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Wynn. At this time, if you'll just make some brief remarks, Mr. Hostetler, and then I'll let commissioners ask you questions one by one.
Is brief.
Yes, sir.
And I can do that. We visited the landfill. It's not a surprise that it is losing money. You've lost some top employees at the landfill. We were asked to come before you and offer our services to hire somebody to run the landfill for you. So that's what those numbers are. That number right there is to run the landfill. Now, we are going to visit with EPD, and this is very, very important. We are going to visit with EPD to get their take on your 5-year plan that Kent did with Triple Point. I like what he did. He is going to be a consultant to us. He is going to help us. We're going to join forces and try to get this thing closed for the least amount of money that we can. The basic problem is a 2-to-1 slope. It does not meet state law, and we have to go to 3-to-1. We can't spread it out any further because there's water on all sides, okay? So we've got to take the trash and move it to the top. We are going to determine whether Roper and Associates, who is going to run the landfill, whether it would be cheaper for them to actually move the trash rather than put it out for bid. What we're trying to do is come up with the best way to close this landfill, the safest way, and the least cost-effective way. Most cost-effective way.
And I think, Commissioner Watkins, did you have a question?
So the current employees that work there within the rank and file employees will report to whom and that relationship, please?
Dr. Moffitt.
Yes, the current employees currently report to me as the interim solid waste director. Under this agreement, I will ask that we partner with Roper and Associates to have a manager on site to handle the day-to-day operations, and that person through Hofsteller will report to me.
So, okay.
That answer your question, Commissioner Watkins?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Wynn, you have a question?
Just a small question. You said that we have to take the garbage on the top and remove it, or we had to put more on the top. I know I've been out there. We can't go out because of the water, but we can't go.
Yeah, we have
steepness of the landfill right now is too steep.
That's right.
So we have to keep going up, but it doesn't spread it out.
Well, you have to stay at the bottom because that point is permanent. So to go to 3-to-1, we got to carve into the trash and push it to the top. We have room at the top.
Okay, that was my question.
So that's the trick. I've got to find whether our employees in Roper can move it cheaper than bidding it out. And I could get into, you know, a earth moving company does not want to move trash. All they want to do is move dirt. So I believe the cheapest way is to get them by the hour to move that trash up to the top, spray the little spray on it, and as they get through, then we'll put it out for bid, and whoever gets the bid, then they will start covering the landfill.
And that'll put us in compliance with that, the sides being so steep, we hope.
Yes.
Right, so we won't get fined or something like that.
You will have an independent geotech, say like Tom Driver, and he'll come out and he'll test the soil, and he'll test the slope, and then he has to certify it, and then we have to certify it. I mean, everybody got to certify it, okay? And then we give it to EPD. Then you are officially closed, and it's over.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynn. Pro Tem Carter, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just generally speaking, after looking at this, what are your the environmental concerns that you see about the landfill right now? Any concerns you have with groundwater? I know that there's testing coming up, and we have to that's part of the process. But just generally, could you speak to the concerns that you guys have seen with that, and also what again, I hate to keep saying the word generally, but what are the common practices for mitigating environmental concerns that you come across in this process?
The first thing you have to do is you have groundwater monitoring wells, okay, and you test those every quarter. And if you have any hits in nitrates, then you have to go back and you have to identify the plume. Like, okay, it's here. How far out does it go? Right now, believe it or not, I think you're in compliance right now. if we close the landfill and all of a sudden we start getting hits, then we've got to go in and mitigate that, and that's pull the groundwater out, fix it, put it back in. The good news there is that I think we own all the land around it, and so we just move the limit back, but it'll be underwater. I'm telling you, this is going to be a tricky design. I wish I could answer all your questions, but I hadn't really got into it yet. Once I do, then I'll be able to answer them.
No, I understand, and I'm sorry. I know that, like I said, the testing hasn't started. We haven't even tested for the nitrates on the groundwater wells, and I was just generally what the steps look like. So, but you answered that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pro Tem Clark. Any other questions from commissioners? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to Part C, which is the second part of this plan. This is a resolution of the Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the mayor to execute a task release agreement with Hostetler and Associates to provide engineering design and construction observation services at Walker Road landfill for a fee equal to 8% of the price of the closure contract to be determined, payable by the 2018 SPOS revenues for Walker Road landfill. This is my motion. Can I get a second? Second by, who is that? Commissioner Jones. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion in that regard or any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Jones, I had your light first.
Okay, so the 8% fee that's whose fee?
That's our fees.
That's your fee, okay.
5% for engineering, not 7, 5%, and 3% for inspection.
Okay, and that's what you and I had conversations about, because you told me the range was 5 to 7, you were gonna do it for 5.
I like what Kent did with Triple Point, and I reduced it. I feel very comfortable with what he did, and I think we'll be able to follow through with EPD very smoothly, and that's going to be the trick.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Commissioner Lucas, you had a question?
Yes, I just wanted to ask if similar to what he was asking, Commissioner Jones was asking, about this being the standard professional amount.
Yes. The industry standards are always 7% engineering, 3% inspection, but you've already had another engineer look at it, so I feel pretty comfortable with that.
Okay.
With the Macon Water Authority, it's 7 and 3.
All right, on these amounts, like the Resolution B with 197,340, and then this 8%. Once we approve those amounts, is that just it? Is there any place that we have within Macon-Bibb County that will check? I, for a long time, wanted to have something that would check on the full amounts that we were paying in SPOS dollars, because I know a lot of this is uncharted ground, and so I think on some projects we've probably been overcharged, but we didn't know what the right fees were. So is there a way of determining? I just want to make sure we're not being gouged, and no offense to y'all, I know y'all would not do that, ever do that. But I'm just saying, what's the safeguard to what we're approving? Because we don't know. We're just kind of operating on faith in a lot of instances.
You are correct, but the short answer is they will be providing me, especially with the trash removal piece is on an hourly rate, and we don't know exactly how much we have to move to change the grade from 2 to 1 to 3 to 1. So they will be providing that information to me, if not weekly, probably monthly, as they get in there and start looking at what work needs to be done. So we'll be looking at that and making sure that we are staying in line with the SPOS budget for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. That's a good question. Commissioner Watkins?
Yeah, and you've alluded to, and I can recall that we had a previous relationship with another engineering firm. We're not in a situation where, and I guess you alluded that you'll also be using their work.
Correct.
We're not double paying, or we've already paid triple.
No, sir. If you recall, the previous administration, we were looking at going at the path of siting a new landfill, which is what we consider they specialized in. Once we knew that we were not going in the direction and we were going in the direction of fully closing this landfill, that's when we did our research and found out that Hofstadter Association is probably the better of the two in closing the landfill. And Triple Point agreed with that, and they agreed to work with Hofstadter because they specialize in the groundwater monitoring aspect of it, and they would like to continue that part of it. So Hofstadter is going to work with Triple Point in the groundwater management part of it, and Hofstadter is going to specialize in the closure, which is C in doing the RFPs and the bidding and everything to go ahead and get the closure.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong. I was under the assumption that we were always going to close the landfill 100%.
We were, but if you remember closing this one, we were looking at opening another one.
Correct.
So
but help me out.
We're not going
So
in that
not
direction.
talking about the opening of it, but
Correct.
the relationship with Triple Point was about closure of the landfill. They
Right.
provided engineering on closure.
Because it was like they were a 2 for 1 because they were
So
working
I'm
with us.
asking.
Mhm.
They provided us with engineering, and I guess the industry standard is they get 5 to 8%. Are we paying them 5 or 8%, and
Sir.
then paying these folks?
No, sir.
So Triple Point gave us that work for free.
No, we'd already paid for that, so we
There's two different things.
So we paid a flat fee to Triple Point?
See, Triple Point got everything ready to send to EPD. He never actually came with the plans and specs or anything like put it out for bid, never did anything like that. He did all the preliminary work, which was in his contract. I read his contract. That's what the contract called for, is to present something to EPD that they will accept. If APD accepts it, which I haven't seen that they have, then we can take that plan and then we do the plans and specifications, we do the slopes, we do everything like that, and then we put it out for bid. But he did what he said he was going to do, which is all the preliminary work to submit to EPD.
and the 8% is for the future work. Once we put it out for bid.
Dr. Marple, we need to get up to the mic, please, and
Oh,
speak one at
I'm
a
sorry.
time so we all can hear what
So,
y'all saying.
To that point, the RFP process so all that was done, we wrote a check for no loss on either side, and now we're here.
Correct.
Okay.
You are correct.
Okay. So no reason to pay any other engineers for.
No, sir.
Okay.
And they're not going to get paid until we are select the construction.
Well, no,
part of
here's
it.
the way we're gonna get paid. You know, there's an estimated amount. We'll bill 5% to that estimated amount, and then we'll hold some back, say probably 10 or 15%, till we put it out for bid, and then we settle up at the end. That's
So-
standard. That's,
and
we do that for every county.
The 5% or the 8% is based upon what's that total number?
In other words, if we put this out for bid and it comes in $10 million,
Mm-hmm.
okay, which I hope it does, then 5% of that is us, and then during construction, we get paid the 3%. If, it's kind of funny, I'm gonna be very brief. If we do a really good job and it comes in at 8%, we'll actually get less money, but that's okay, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So to answer your question, I think we paid for services and we got the services rendered under the previous consultant. And we're getting a discounted rate from 7 to 5% based on some preliminary work that was done that you wouldn't have to duplicate. So that's where the 2% savings is going to be. So we'll move on to Commissioner Jones.
Yes, sir. A couple of questions, Carl, for you on, we're, as we get all this information. This is not our expertise, so we're supposed to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. So that's the reason I ask these type questions. I try to look after it like it's my money. So
I know that.
So the monitoring, who monitors the guy you hire to move the dirt? He's going to do it on an hourly basis. Does someone, either our employee or you?
We'll have our guy out there.
You'll have a guy there who's actually watching. So I know he spent 50 hours because we were there.
Right.
Okay. So this.
And we'll decide whether we want him to do that after we get out and start running the landfill.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So in other words, he said, Carl, I can move this dirt so much. I move this trash so much an hour. And not to belabor the point, but these guys, when you put something out for these dirt movers, they don't want to move trash. So you're going to pay a premium if you just put it out for bid right now and say, all right, Applin Brothers or Johnny Walker or one of these guys, move that trash. You're going to pay 50% more than if this guy gets in here and moves it. I mean, that's my feeling. Once we get in here, I'll certainly
Now you get a better deal because he's gonna have the dirt as well.
And it won't come out of the 190, it'll come out of the 11 million that he's estimated to do it. I think we can do that for a much cheaper price to move that dirt. I mean, I really
appreciate
do.
that. Then the other thing is, of course, even after we close it, we've got to monitor it for
That's right.
30 years. So you'll be involved with that from the master services agreement as far as doing that.
Actually, that'll be Triple Point that will do the monitoring.
Sure.
That's what he really wants to do. I mean,
Okay.
that's what he's really good at doing. And he told me, he said, "Carl, can you please do the?" I said, "I have no desire to do the monitoring.
Okay.
I don't have the equipment. I think you stay with Triple Point to do the monitoring."
This
I'm
board
cool with
needs to
that. Now,
realize we got to monitor those things for 30 years after we
that's
close
correct. You have no choice on that. You did that's just, and it's sitting in an island. If y'all never been out there, you need to.
Yeah.
It's a different place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any further questions from commissioners? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Be sent to the consent agenda. Our final item is item D. This is a resolution of Macon-Bibb County Commission authorizing the mayor to execute a task release agreement with Hofstadter and Associates to provide engineering, design, and construction observation services for 5 solid waste convenience centers in the total amount of $120,000 payable out of 2018 SPOS revenues. That is my motion. Can I get a second? Got a second by Commissioner Wilder. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Watkins, I'm sorry, put your mic.
Animal shelter is going to be the first one. So people that have been coming with the C&D, they'll have a place to go now rather than we just close the landfill and say that's just tough.
To answer a commissioner's question, Mr. Hofstadter, if you don't mind, if you speak into the mic, but I'm going to answer this question just briefly. We have not identified all 5 locations, Commissioner. We want input from the commissioners as well as the community. We do know that we have mapped out several, asked for all surplus properties that the county owned. The one particular one we thought we'd do first is the one at the old animal shelter for 2 reasons. Number one, we had a body structure on that building. We've had tested negative for asbestos, so we can tear that down at one time. And also people are familiar going to that area, so that would be a good start to do a first design. We have several other locations in mind because they're surplus properties that the county owns, so we wouldn't have to spend any money to locate those properties. We want to make sure that each one of them meets the needs. What we see on these convenience centers is maybe a 5-acre or so land that is nicely landscaped, has maybe some pavement coming in, but mostly the crush and run afterwards, with several open low-foot roll-off containers, several areas for recycling, I call it a guard shack for lack of a better term. We've got restroom facilities, heating and air for the person working there that will man the gate, security in place there at the time, and a little bit off the road, so it's not something that people would even notice. That will be open probably 4 days a week, 10 hours a day, and we would man that with some of our staff. And then you would basically come in there. They would help direct you to where you're supposed to drop off your materials at. We would decide what would actually go there, what the recycling would be, and then they would check your ID because we want Bibb County residents to use that, not have out-of-town people coming to use our facilities. And then that's what we want to be convenient within a 3-mile radius of everyone's house. We believe that those 5 could get good coverage on that based on the density and population. And we believe that this will help us with illegal dumping as well. But we're open to additional sites, but we have looked at a couple we think would be appropriate right now. And each design will be a little bit different, but we want to make those convenient for the citizens of Macon-Bibb County. So any follow-up questions of you, Commissioner Watkins?
Sounds like a great program. I was curious, how did y'all come up, so you've already bid these out, how'd you come up with the $120,000 number?
It's $24,000 per. Is there the design and fees that are on that contract that you've got there?
Oh, this is 120 to them. I thought I heard something about the
$150,000. We've toured a couple of other ones in our surrounding counties that have these convenience centers. We've asked just for a back of napkin estimate from Mr. Hostel and his group on approximate cost that it would be, and compare it with our surrounding counties. You can go as little as $100,000, or you can do the Cadillac at $250,000. We estimated approximately $150,000 because we're not having to pay for the land on these.
Now,
Okay.
this is me being difficult, but earlier the fee was 8%. 150,000, 24 is more than 8%, right?
And let me tell you why. because that's gonna be a smaller job, I gotta have a higher percent. If you start, you start getting around 10 million, I can lower that rate down. That's just the time that I'm gonna spend doing that, and that's just estimated time.
Yeah.
Cause I've got to go in there and never mind, okay. I got a topo it, I gotta pay electrical engineer, you're gonna have electric gate, you have lights, air conditioning, so I gotta pay a bunch of subs, that all doesn't go to me.
So, yeah, 24,000 is the fee. That's why we do those task-oriented basis, because each of these are different jobs, and has to be approved by the commissioner. I had Commissioner Jones with a question, and Commissioner Lucas, I see you about to talk. You have a question next? I'll put you down on the waiting list.
Who you recognizing, me?
You are, Commissioner Jones.
Yeah, on the convenience centers, a couple of questions. When they fill up, what happens then? And do we have plans in our new scheme for a transfer station?
We are considering these transfer stations at this time. We would hope to save the money on a permanent transfer station. I don't want to get into specifics about this, but these will be regularly scheduled by a third party to remove these containers. They actually can bring one truck out there to help with our carbon footprint and dump several of these into one container to haul off, and that will be a third party provider that will come back before the commission.
So they'll haul it to
Wherever. We don't have a landfill.
out of Bibb County somewhere.
That's correct.
Okay.
I have Commissioner Lucas and then Commissioner Wynn.
I really like the idea of, because all of this is coming together into a comprehensive plan for dealing with some things that, we've sat around and talked about it, but we've not had we've got all this information. What do we do with it? What's going to happen? How are we going to respond to what citizens are asking? And these are all parts of it. I did want to get back to this idea of the fees, and I wanted to ask about the minority participation in these different contracts, because it sounds like that y'all have already looked at entering into contracts with a number of different people,
Right.
which is very good. But what about local folks? And then what about your minority, assuring that minority businesses are included in this?
I'll certainly check on that. I think Matt does. I think he does have some
Now,
minority.
you should not have to check on
I
this.
know.
You should
Matt.
know.
Matt Roper.
Somebody should.
I can chime. Okay, the first part in Matt Roper is coming in and doing the landfill. So Matt Roper and his organization, I would have to look at what the demographics of his are. But the bid process for B, which is the main part, will go through our procurement process. All the bids and everything will go through our office. And as you know, we are making sure that we include small business in it and things of that nature. So the larger the 10 million plus number, we control that process. So that's through that's through us.
Right. I'm not talking about quotas or anything like that, because I know you can't set those, but I'm talking about goals and making sure that we are working in sync with what's on the books, as well as our intent to make sure that everybody has a role in this.
Understand.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas, for that question. Commissioner Wynn?
Yes, sir, thank you. What's the fee gonna be to use the convenience centers?
Free.
Free, okay, so we need to let the public make sure they understand that, because some of them avoid that because they're thinking they're having to pay a fee.
Yeah.
Would that be just for personal dumping or for commercial, or both?
Only for personal dumping. We will educate the public on the process. We have recycling there, like we talked about. We will have a section for what they call the white goods, which is your refrigerators, all those. We have a tire cage at one of them for people to dispose of tires, cardboard, C&D type stuff. Household trash is not allowed in these. We have service that already provides those services. So that's something we're going to educate the public about. The recycling part is about what items to bring. And then the only thing we would do is make sure they're Bibb County residents.
I think this is a wonderful thing. I just want to see where these locations are, and I hope we'll have that decided pretty soon.
Yeah.
I think people are ready to use them instead of dumping stuff along Napier Avenue.
Yeah, one of the key things we're faced with is we have to close the landfill, and when we close the landfill, we're gonna have to provide alternative places for for people to have. Otherwise, they're gonna dump them on the side. So that's why the urgency. I've asked Mr. Hostel and his company to try their best to have this ready in 90 days, at least one, so we have a place that we can call a convenience center. I'm open to suggestions for commissioners. I'd be happy to send you the list of surplus properties we have. You think the one may be convenient to your area. What we want to remind people, these are not dumps. So please don't call them dumps. They're convenience centers or transfer stations, because you wouldn't know they're there if they were in your neighborhood. So we don't want people to think that we're bringing any type of health or safety or smell or any of those types of things, because you absolutely will not have it. And there are several locations. And the reason we're choosing surplus property is because there's no need to go out and buy property, because people want to charge the government a lot more money anyway if they never looking, when we already have properties in our bank to fill. So that's the ultimate goal.
Like a good plan, like I said.
Commissioner Bronson?
Just had a quick question in regards to piggyback on Commissioner Lucas. Minority-owned businesses and so forth, the list and requirements for small businesses to bid in. What's the timeline on getting the information out to them so they would have adequate enough time to get their paperwork together to bid in on this? That's the first question. And then the second question I had, in regards to the first location for the convenience center, have we identified our first location? Have we identified that spot yet?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
To answer your first question, the bids for the RFP probably won't go out for another 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
So now is the time for people to start getting, make sure they're on our vendor list, to make sure they have everything in order that we require for that. Again, because we have to get the landfill in a certain readiness state before we can even start the process.
Yes,
So-
sir. And then in regards to, you said yes, what was the location for the first one again?
The previous animal shelter downtown was the first location. We thought we would take out the blighted structure at the same time and place it there. People are familiar with going to that area. At least we know it gets used to some extent, and we already own the property, and we can kind of do two things at one time. And it also gives us a good first pilot to look at before we expand in other areas. We do want to make them convenient for everybody, and we certainly want to be equitable across the district, but at the same time, we don't want people to think we're trying to stick something in their area that's not welcoming for that. But I promise you, we're going to make these look really good, and we're going to make sure that they're kept up and they're clean and very attractive, and they fit in with the area they're involved. And I don't think you'd recognize them otherwise. So,
Thank you, sir.
And it's not a dump. Okay, convenience centers, transfer stations is what we call them. So, Pro Tem Clark, you had a question?
Yeah, I just more of a comment. When we're looking at how we're gonna set up recycling at the convenience centers, I hope we'll look at considerations on adding glass to that. I know that we can't put them in the recycling bins right now, and the recycling centers in Monroe County accept glass bottles and surrounding counties too. I just think it's a great opportunity with the transition to add this to it. And I don't know the process of adding it, but I just hope we'll look into it.
I think it's a loss leader on the glass, and it's very specific about how you have to recycle that, and they don't like to recycle that, but it's something we may need to have anyway, and just consider the cost of doing business. Commissioner Wynn, do you have a final question?
Did you say you were going to get us a list of the properties that
Yes,
the city
I'm
owns?
going to
so we
ask
could-
Dr. Moffett to
So we could look at that.
send you a list of all the surplus properties that we looked at initially, to make sure, because what I wanted to do is we actually had a map, and I was trying to map these out so we could be strategic in certain areas of the community and make sure it's fair and equitable for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a motion and a second. I see no other lights on, so I assume there's no other questions in this regard. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. That's our number 36 item on the agenda. So we're going to close that out, and I think we do have 2 items to consider executive session. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Moffitt, you have anything further? Okay. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purposes published on the agenda. Can I get a motion? Got a motion by Pro Tem Clark, second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. We're now in executive session, and we're going to move to the mayor's conference room. Thank you.
I may, Mr. Mayor, just, this will be our first time trying this. Again, just looking out for everyone's health. If we can, not to treat you like kindergarten, but just knowing that we're trying to follow proper protocols. If we could, every other chair, we do have chairs around the wall. I don't want anyone offended. They're not sitting at the table, but if you can, just let's make sure that we appropriately space out for that. Thank you so much.
Okay, I see we've got a quorum to get started again. We are now in executive session, but I would like to have a motion to come out of executive session. Got a motion by Pro Tem Clark, second by Commissioner Wynn. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. We're now out of executive session. This time, the time is now 12:25. There are no other items on the agenda. At this time, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Clark, second by Commissioner Lucas. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're now adjourned.